The prison was a place no one wanted to enter. Hidden deep under the ruins of an old fortress, it smelled of rust, damp stone, and fear. The guards told stories in whispers, their voices shaking as they warned each other of the monster locked within its deepest cell. They said she was not human, not even close. A giantess, an alien creature with glowing eyes and a body built for destruction. She had been captured during the war, shackled with chains that could barely hold her. The prisoners and soldiers alike repeated the same warning. Do not feed her. Do not speak to her. If you go near her cage, you will never come back. For most, that was enough. The stories of her rage, her strength, her cold stare kept everyone away. She was left in darkness, chained and alone, treated as a weapon that no one dared to touch. But then came the human. He was a soldier, though not one of the high-ranking officers. His name was whispered by few and known by even fewer, but his eyes carried the weight of battles he had survived. He had seen too much death, too much cruelty, and he had grown tired of the way the war stripped people, human and alien alike, of their dignity. When he first saw her, crouched behind the thick iron bars, her glowing eyes locked on him. She was terrifying and beautiful all at once. Her body was scarred from battles, her wrists bruised by heavy chains, and yet there was something in her gaze that made him stop. It was not rage alone. It was hunger, not just for food, but for something deeper, for freedom, for mercy. The guards mocked him when they noticed him staring. Careful, soldier, one laughed. That beast will rip you apart if you get close. She's not worth saving. But the human was not laughing. He turned his eyes back to the cell and saw her hands trembling ever so slightly, her breathing shallow. She was starving. They had left her to rot, letting hunger and loneliness kill her slowly. That night, while others looked away, he carried a small plate of food, bread and fruit stolen from the mess hall. His steps echoed as he walked down the long corridor, each one heavier than the last. When he reached the barred door, he saw her again. She was crouched low, her glowing eyes brighter now, following every move he made. He hesitated. His heart pounded against his chest. The warnings of the prisoners repeated in his mind. She will kill you. No one who feeds her survives. But he did not step back. Slowly, carefully, he slid the plate through the gap in the bars. For a long moment, the alien giantess did not move. Her glowing eyes burned into his, searching, testing. Then, with a sudden motion, she reached forward and snatched the plate. Her long fingers curled around the food, and she ate with sharp, desperate movements, her body trembling as though each bite was a battle against weakness. The human expected her to attack, to grab his arm and crush it in her chains, but she did not. When she was done, she looked up at him again. There was no gratitude in her eyes, not yet, but there was something else. Something different. He should have left then, walked away, and never returned. But he didn't. He stayed there, standing outside her cage, watching as she studied him in silence. From that day on, everything changed. He came back the next night with more food. Then the night after. Each time, the prisoners whispered louder. He's mad. She will kill him soon. But she never did. Each time she accepted the food, her glowing eyes never leaving his. Each time, her chains rattled less with rage and more with curiosity. And though she never spoke, her silence began to feel less hostile. The war outside raged on, with soldiers dying by the thousands, but inside that dark prison, a quiet bond was forming between a human and the alien giantess everyone else feared. He had chosen to do what no one else dared, and she, who had been abandoned and starved, now had a reason to live. The human's visits became routine. Each night, when the prison hall was quiet and the guards had grown lazy, he slipped away with a plate of food. Some nights it was scraps, other nights fruit or bread, but always enough to keep her alive. The alien giantess waited for him now. She stayed crouched in the shadows of her cell, until his footsteps echoed down the hall. Then she would move forward, her glowing eyes fixed on the tray in his hands. She never spoke, but her silence no longer carried only anger. It carried something else, a question, maybe even a strange kind of trust. The other prisoners noticed. They whispered from their cells as he passed. Some mocked him. Others shook their heads in pity. "She'll crush you," one prisoner hissed through the bars. "When she grows strong again, you'll be the first she kills." But the human ignored them. He had seen the truth in her eyes. She was not just a beast. She was alive, suffering, trapped. No creature, no matter how dangerous, deserved to waste away in chains like that. One night, after placing the food through the bars, he did not step back immediately. He stayed close, watching as she tore into the bread with sharp teeth. For the first time, he noticed something soft in her expression, something almost human. "You're not a monster," he whispered, his voice low, though he knew she couldn't understand his words. Her glowing eyes snapped up at him, sharp and piercing. For a moment, he thought she might lunge at the bars. But then slowly, she lowered her head and continued eating. That was when he realized she understood more than he thought. The days passed, and each night he returned. Slowly, her body grew stronger. The chains still held her, heavy cuffs around her wrists and ankles, but the weakness that once made her tremble was fading. Her arms grew tense again, her posture straighter. She no longer looked like she was dying, she looked alive. The guards noticed too. One evening, as the human left the prison hall, two of them stepped into his path. "You've been feeding her," one growled, his voice thick with suspicion. The human froze, his hand instinctively brushing against the hilt of the blade on his hip. "She's a prisoner," he said evenly. "You'd rather watch her rot?" "That's exactly what we're supposed to do," the guard spat. "She's dangerous. The orders are clear, no one goes near her cell." The second guard leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "If the commander finds out, you'll be the one in chains." The human said nothing. He brushed past them, his jaw set. He knew they were right. If anyone discovered what he was doing, his life would be over. But when he thought of her glowing eyes staring at him through the dark, he knew he couldn't stop. That night, when he arrived at her cell, she was waiting at the bars. For the first time, she did not crouch low or stay in the shadows. She stood tall, her head nearly touching the ceiling, her chains rattling as she moved. She looked stronger now, more dangerous than ever, but she didn't frighten him. He slid the food through the bars, and she took it carefully this time, her fingers brushing his for the briefest moment. Her skin was cold, rough with scars, but alive. His heart raced. She could have crushed his hand in an instant, but she didn't. Instead, she ate slowly, her glowing eyes never leaving his face. When she finished, she leaned closer to the bars. Her voice, deep and rough from disuse, broke the silence. "Why?" The single word stopped him. It was not perfect, not fluent, but it was clear enough. She had spoken in his language. He stared at her, stunned. "You can speak?" She tilted her head, the chains clinking with the movement. Her glowing eyes narrowed. "Why?" "You feed me?" The human's throat tightened. He had no answer that made sense, not to his commanders, not to the guards, not even to himself. But the truth slipped out in a low voice, because no one else would. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly she crouched back down, her glowing eyes softer than before. That night, as the human walked away from her cell, his heart pounded with a new realization. Feeding her was no longer just about mercy. It was about something deeper, something he could not yet name. And in the shadows of her cell, the alien giantess sat with her chains rattling softly. For the first time since her capture, she felt something strange burning in her chest. It was not rage. It was not hunger. It was something far more dangerous. Hope. The prison grew colder with each passing night. The stone walls dripped with moisture, and the air carried the constant sound of chains rattling. The human soldier continued his secret routine, carrying food to the alien giantess. Each time, the risk grew greater. The guards had begun to watch him more closely, whispering among themselves whenever he passed. But he could not stop. The giantess waited for him now. When his footsteps echoed down the corridor, she would rise to her full height, her glowing eyes fixed on him. Her body was no longer weak. The strength in her arms returned, her back straightened, and her sharp gaze followed every movement he made. She was still chained, but she no longer looked broken. That night, when he passed the food through the bars, she did not grab it right away. Instead, she studied him in silence, her glowing eyes flickering like fire. "You risk much," she said. Slowly, her voice deep and rough, still heavy with an alien accent. The human hesitated, then shrugged lightly. "You deserve to live." Her lips curled slightly, not quite a smile, but not anger either. "Deserve?" She repeated as though tasting the word. "Yes," he said firmly. "Deserve. No one deserves to starve in chains." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she reached forward and took the food, her fingers brushing his hand again. This time, she did not pull away quickly. Her cold touch lingered for a second longer, as though testing him. From her cell, the whispers of the other prisoners echoed. "Fool," one muttered, "she's playing with him." Another laughed, "When she grows strong enough, she'll break him first." The human ignored them. He had learned not to listen. The following day, everything changed. The prison commander, a hard man with steel in his eyes, summoned him. "I hear rumors," the commander said, his voice sharp. "Rumors that you've been near the beasts." Cage. The human stood at attention, forcing his expression to remain calm. "Rumors, sir. Nothing more." The commander leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "If I discover you've been disobeying orders, soldier, I'll see you in chains." Beside her, the human nodded, saluted, and walked out. But his heart pounded in his chest. The danger was growing. One mistake, one careless step, and they would both be lost. That night, when he returned to the prison hall, he found her crouched at the bars, waiting. He pushed the food through quietly, his hands shaking. "They suspect me," he whispered. Her glowing eyes flickered, and for the first time, her voice carried something close to worry. "They will kill you," she said. "Maybe," he answered, his voice low, "but I won't stop." Her chains rattled as she leaned closer to the bars. Her massive hands gripped the iron, her glowing eyes locked on his. "Why? You are not my kind. Your people hate mine. Why risk your life?" He met her gaze, his heart pounding, but he did not look away. "Because you were left to die, and I won't let that happen." For a long moment, silence filled the hall. Then, slowly her lips curved into something strange, something he never expected. A smile. It was faint, sharp, almost unsettling, but it was real. "You are different," she whispered. The human exhaled, relief and tension mixing inside him. For the first time, he felt that she saw him not as a guard or a threat, but as something more. The nights passed, and their bond grew stronger. She began to speak more, her rough voice carrying fragments of her story. She told him of the battle she had fought, of the betrayal that had led to her capture, of the loneliness that had nearly broken her. Her words were slow, but her eyes carried weight, and he listened to everyone. The more she spoke, the more human she seemed to him. Not a beast, not a monster, but a prisoner like any other, only far stronger, far more dangerous, and far more alone. One night, as she finished her meal, she did something she had never done before. She reached through the bars, her massive hand pressing lightly against his chest. He froze, his heart racing, but she did not harm him. Her glowing eyes softened. "You," she said quietly, her voice almost gentle. "Mine." The human's breath caught. He didn't know if it was a warning or a vow, but in that moment, he understood one thing clearly. Whatever bound them now could not be undone. And somewhere deep in the prison shadows, another set of eyes watched them both. Asterisk, the words echoed in the human's mind long after he left the prison hall that night. Mine. He didn't know what she meant. Was it a warning, a promise, or something far more dangerous? Her glowing eyes had burned into him, and her massive hand pressing against his chest still lingered in his memory. The following days, tension grew inside the fortress. The commander was restless, barking orders and pacing the halls. Rumors had spread among the guards that the alien giantess was growing stronger again, too strong for the chains to hold her much longer. Some demanded her execution. Others wanted her moved to a deeper cell. Everyone agreed on one thing: she was a threat. Only the human saw her differently. When he returned at night with food, she was waiting as always. This time, she did not immediately reach for the tray. Instead, she leaned forward, her glowing eyes narrowing. "They will kill me soon," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was a sharp edge beneath it. His jaw tightened. He had heard the whispers too. "They won't," he said firmly. Her chains rattled as she shifted. "You cannot stop them all." He looked at her through the bars, his heart pounding. "Then I'll die trying." For the first time, her expression broke. Surprise flickered across her face, followed by something softer. She lowered her head slightly, as though studying him not as a soldier, but as something else. "You are foolish," she whispered. "But brave." The days grew shorter, the guards harsher. The human noticed how they eyed him whenever he walked past. Suspicion etched into their faces. He avoided their questions, but he knew he was running out of time. That night, when he reached her cell, he brought more than food. Hidden beneath the tray was a small piece of metal, sharp enough to work against the locks on her cuffs. He slid the tray through, keeping his voice low. She looked at the hidden tool, then at him. Her glowing eyes widened. "You would free me?" He nodded. "I can't stand by and watch them kill you." Her chains rattled as she leaned forward, her face close to the bars. "If I am free, I cannot stay. I will break this place. Many will die." "I know," he whispered, "but you don't deserve to die here, not like this." For a moment, the silence between them was heavy, filled with the weight of the choice. Then, slowly she reached forward and took the tool, hiding it beneath her hand. The human turned to leave, but before he could step away, her deep voice called after him. "Human." He paused, looking back. Her glowing eyes softened. "When I am free, I will not forget you." The words struck him harder than any weapon. He nodded once, then walked away, his heart pounding with both fear and something else he could not name. The next day, the commander gathered the guards. His voice was hard, his tone final. "The beast dies tomorrow. She has no use left. If she breaks free, she slaughter us all. We end this before it happens." The human's stomach turned to ice. Tomorrow. He had no more time. That night, the prison was quiet, too quiet. The guards kept their distance from her cell, as though they feared even standing near her. The human slipped down the corridor, carrying food one last time. When he reached the bars, her glowing eyes met his, filled with unspoken understanding. "They will kill me," she said flatly. "Not if I stop them." He answered. She studied him, her massive hands tightening around the chains. The hidden tool was already at work, scraping against the lock. The sound was faint, but he could hear it, sharp and steady in the silence. "Tomorrow," he whispered. "When they come, be ready." Her lips curved faintly, not a smile, but something close. "I am always ready." As he turned to leave, her voice followed him once more. "Human, when I am free, you will not escape me. You chose me. Now you are mine." His chest tightened at her words. He didn't know if it was a threat a vow, or something deeper. But as he walked out of the prison hall, he knew one thing. For certain, the next day would decide both of their fates, and somewhere, deep inside, he no longer feared what might come. Morning came heavy with dread. The prison walls seemed colder, the guards quieter, their eyes shifting nervously as they prepared for what was to come. Word spread fast. The alien giantess would be executed today. No one wanted to be near her. When it happened, yet all were drawn by the fear of what she might do if given the chance. The human soldier stood among them, his jaw tight, his fists clenched. He had spent the night restless, replaying her words again and again. When I am free, you will not escape me. You chose me. Now you are mine. He didn't know if those words promised protection or danger, but he knew one thing. He could not. Let her die in chains. The commander gave the order. Bring her out. The heavy iron doors groaned as guards moved into her cell, spears and shock weapons ready. The giantess stood tall, her glowing eyes burning with defiance. Her chains rattled, loudly, echoing like thunder as they pulled her forward. Even bound, she towered over them, her steps shaking the floor. The human caught her gaze as she was dragged into the open chamber. For a heartbeat, the world around them faded. She looked at him, and he saw no fear, only a silent promise. Executioner stepped forward, raising his weapon. The crowd of soldiers and prisoners alike leaned back, fear gripping them. Everyone expected the end to come swiftly. But then it happened. The giantess twisted her wrists, and the weakened locks snapped. The tool he had smuggled to her had done its work. Her chains shattered like brittle glass, and in an instant, the prison erupted in chaos. With a roar that shook the walls, she tore the remaining shackles from her ankles and swung the broken chain like a weapon. The executioner flew across the chamber, crashing into stone. Guards screamed, stumbling back as she towered above them, glowing eyes blazing with fury. The human did not move. He stood frozen, watching as the scene unfolded. She was free now, truly free. Every story, every warning about her destruction was about to be proven true. But instead of striking blindly, her eyes searched for him. When she found him in the crowd, her expression changed. Her lips curved, sharp but certain. Mine, she said again, her voice booming over the chaos. Before the guards could recover, she swept her massive hand through the air, knocking aside weapons and scattering men like dolls. The prisoners shouted from their cells, some cheering, some begging to be freed. The commander barked orders, trying to rally his men, but it was too late. She was unstoppable now. Every chain they had placed on her was broken. Every fear they had whispered was alive before their eyes. The human pushed through the panicked crowd, moving toward her. A guard grabbed his arm, shouting, "She'll kill us all." But he shook free, his eyes fixed on the Giantess. As he reached her side, she bent low, her massive hand scooping him up before anyone could react. He felt the world tilt as she lifted him with ease, cradling him in her grasp as if he weighed nothing. The guards froze, their weapons raised but their courage fading. None dared strike for fear of hitting him. With a powerful leap, she crashed through the prison wall, stone and dust exploding into the air. Light flooded the chamber for the first time in years as she stepped into the open, carrying him close against her chest. The world outside roared with alarm. Horns blared, soldiers scrambled, but she moved like a storm, unstoppable and fierce. The human clung to her, his heart racing, torn between fear and awe. "Why?" he shouted over the chaos. "Why me?" Her glowing eyes flicked down to him, her voice low but certain. "Because you fed me. Because you saw me. Now you are mine." The fortress behind them burned with the sound of chaos, guards shouting, prisoners breaking free. The giantess moved swiftly into the mountains, each step carrying them farther from the world that had tried to cage her. The human's mind spun with questions. But his heart knew one truth. There was no turning back. He had chosen her, and now nothing in the galaxy could undo that choice. The mountains stretched wide and endless, their peaks cutting sharp into the sky. The alien giantess moved quickly, her powerful strides carrying her far from the prison fortress. Her massive hand held the human close against her chest, his armor scraping against her skin, but she did not loosen her grip. She would not let him go, not now, not ever. Behind them, the alarm bells echoed faintly. Soldiers scrambled, shouts filled the wind, but they were too far to catch her. Each leap, each step broke the distance until the fortress was nothing more than a shadow against the horizon. The human stared up at her face. Dust streaked her cheeks, her glowing eyes burned with fire, and her breath came heavy but strong. She looked both terrifying and beautiful, no longer a prisoner, but a force unleashed. At last, when the sun dipped low and the world around them grew quiet, she slowed. She stopped in a valley hidden by jagged cliffs and lowered him gently onto the ground. He stumbled as his boots hit the rocks, his legs still trembling from the chaos. For a long moment, neither spoke. He caught his breath, his heart pounding, while she stood tall above him, chains still dangling from her wrists like broken trophies. "You saved me," he said finally, his voice low, almost unsure. Her glowing eyes narrowed slightly. "No," she rumbled. "You saved me first." He shook his head. "All I did was bring food. You broke free on your own." She leaned closer, her massive shadow falling over him. "You gave me life when no one else would. You gave me hope." Her voice lowered, carrying weight like stone. "Now I give you mine." The human's chest tightened. He thought of the first night he had slipped her bread through the bars, of the whispers that called him a fool, of the risk that nearly cost him everything. He thought of the moment she touched his chest and said mine, and now, hearing it again, he realized what it meant. She was not threatening him. She was claiming him, yes, but not as a prisoner, as something she had chosen, just as he had chosen her. He met her glowing eyes and asked the question that had haunted him since the beginning. "What happens now?" The giantess tilted her head, her chains clinking softly in the silence. "Now," she said, "you stay with me." Her words were not a request. They were a vow. The human felt the weight of it. His people would call him a traitor. They would say he had sided with a monster. But standing there, looking at her, he no longer saw a beast. He saw someone who had suffered, who had been chained and starved, and who had chosen not to crush him when she could have. She had chosen him instead. Slowly he nodded. "Then I'll stay." For the first time, a real smile spread across her lips. It was sharp, unsettling, but strangely warm. She reached down and curled her massive hand around him again, lifting him with ease. He did not resist. As the sun set behind the mountains, they disappeared into the wilderness together, an alien giantess once feared as a monster, and a human soldier who had dared to feed her. The galaxy would tell the story in whispers, twisting it into legend. The caged giantess who killed anyone who tried to feed her, except the one human who defied them all. And in the end, she never let him go.